All right, so we are now finishing week 2 of our 8-week course. But that's kind of like finishing week 4 of a normal 16-week course. So I thought it might be good to review the things that have been assigned so far, and then look forward at the things that are assigned for this week, so that any of us who started late or are a little bit behind, or just misread the syllabus, can either get caught up or finish, or even maybe plan ahead for this week. So glancing at the course calendar, so we had week 1, right? In week 1, I asked of you to complete the 3 initial quizzes. Those were just questions, yes or no. Have you read the syllabus? Have you read the academic integrity? And do you consent to disclose your essays? The next thing that was due was the 2 first pause and practice modules. So those first 2 were for the first week, and then the second 2 were actually for the second week. We'll go over those in a second. We were supposed to last week read 3 stories, The Cathedral, King of the Bingo Game, and The Storm. For all 3 of them, we were supposed to submit a reader response. For The Cathedral, we were supposed to take a reading quiz. And for The Cathedral and King of the Bingo Game, we were supposed to do a group paragraph. So the group paragraphs, as I noted in an email, the group paragraphs were all pushed back by 1 week, which means that the Cathedral and King of the Bingo Game group paragraphs weren't due last week. They are due this week, so there's still time to complete them today. And that goes for all of the group paragraphs. So the group paragraphs that would have been due this week are now pushed to next week. And so on for the rest of the group paragraphs. So for week 2, which is the week that we're finishing right now, we had the 2 remaining pause and practices. So at this point, we should have completed all of the pause and practices. We also had 3 more stories. We had Boys and Girls, we had The Birthmark, and we had The Thing in the Forest. And for all 3, we were supposed to submit a reader response. The group activity we were supposed to do this week is the several stories paragraphs. That one your group can choose which stories to do, but because we pushed back the group paragraphs, that will be due at the end of next week. So that will be due next Sunday. And then the last things that were due here were the inquisitive lessons that were assigned. So for your inquisitives, there were 6 assigned. And then the most important thing is the short story partial draft. So we have read the short stories at this point that we're going to read for the course. So we want to, at this point, have basically chosen a short story that we want to write an essay about. and thought of a thesis based on a theme for that short story. So the partial draft of that would be due today, and that's in preparation for next week when we'll be submitting the short story final draft. So let's move on to what's due next week. So we already talked about the several stories paragraphs. Those will be due next week. Next week, we're going to be starting reading dramas. So the two dramas that we'll be looking at are Fences and A Raisin in the Sun. So for each of these stories, we want to do reading responses for the acts. So that's a total of 2 acts for Fences and a total of 3 acts for A Raisin in the Sun. There's also a close reading for those, and there's also group paragraphs for those. But like we said, the group paragraphs are pushed back 1 week, so those will be due at the end of week 4. And then finally, there's a reading quiz. The reading quiz for the dramas. And then the last thing is that we're going to be finishing up the short stories. So before writing your final short story, I want you to do a planning worksheet. The planning worksheet will be based on my comments on your rough draft. And then I want you to write the final draft, incorporating comments and bulking up the body paragraphs. Essentially putting any supporting details that you left out in the first drafts, and also polishing it up based on some of the comments that I made for you. So I should be getting those comments back to you hopefully tomorrow. I'll have to receive your rough drafts first, and then I'll have to read them to give a little feedback, and then of course I'll have to submit those back to you. So that definitely will take some time. I'll try to do it tomorrow so that you guys have plenty of time to work on your final drafts. But it takes me time too. So we'll see. I'll send out an email about it tomorrow as well. So that's what's going to be due next week. So the short story final draft is one of the 3 big essays that we're doing for the course. The other essay, the 4th essay is smaller, but those first 3 big essays count for a lot of points on your final grade. So this is definitely the thing to focus on over the next week, is getting a good short story final draft. Because I believe that's 10 points on your final grade. So that's going to be an important thing to do relative to these other things like reader responses, etc. The reader responses are only 1 point, right? 1 point each. But your final draft, that's 10 points together. So definitely, if you have any questions about any of the assignments, especially questions about the short story final draft, email me as soon as possible, because I'll hopefully be able to get back to you sometime this week, so that you can incorporate those comments and those considerations by Sunday.